Hey everyone. A question I get asked a bunch is how do I add random appearances for the AI? This question isn't specific to the spawn system at all. I think it's pretty much unrelated, but it's still a question I get asked a bunch, so I figured I'd make a tutorial. So feel free to use this anywhere, anyhow. So say you have a bunch of different zombie models and you have some zombie AI walking around, but they all look the same, and you want to do a quick way of randomizing that. So I'll be going over some different methods on how to achieve that, and I'll try to cover as many different variants of that I can think of. So it might take a while, and I haven't really prepared super properly. I just have some ideas that I want to try out there because I'm a bit short on time. But here we go. So the first thing I do, well, this is spawn system specific. In the BPI master, I disconnect the set color and speed and hook it up straight to here. So skip the sequence and disconnect this since we're not using the dissolve on the new one. And the mesh. So first thing I'm gonna do is change the mesh. I imported Sparrow. It's freely available. It's from the Paragon game, and she has a bunch of different skins. So I figured that'd be perfect for this test case. Yeah, it's pretty cool. But because I changed the skeletal mesh, we don't have an animation blueprint anymore. So I'm gonna assign the Sparrow anim blueprint in here. So that's something to keep in mind. And I would do it this way if I have a set of random skeletal meshes. I would always keep the ones with the same skeleton in one blueprint. So not I am not going to differentiate between the mannequin and Sparrow, because then you need to think of the animation blueprint. You need to keep those variables, and that's easier to do in a child blueprint. So after that, we'll go to the construction script, and I'll show you a way of doing it. Let's just set skeletal mesh, and you can do a select, for example. Let me just like this. So we're gonna drag it, or we're gonna assign all the different skins for Sparrow and select them. There's a downside to this method, and I'll show you a workaround for that. So if you don't want to do if you do a select and you have the randomization set up and you want to do it in a child actor, and you want different meshes, then you're gonna have to redo the construction script. So another way is creating an array of skeletal meshes, skeletal mesh, and make this an array. And blah 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 blah. I'll just do 3 or 4 for now. So it's the same idea. You know, you hook up all the different skeletal meshes, but what this allows you to do, let's make it editable, is if you create a child blueprint. So say we have the roaming. Now we can set up different skeletal meshes for the roaming AI. So that makes it very editable, and you don't have to recreate or create a new construction script. And so here we do random integer in range from 0 to 7. So it's going to pick a random number from 0 to 7 and feed that into the set skeletal mesh. And here that would work mostly the same. You're going to get a copy. You'll get the length of the array minus 1. And then random integer in range, and then the maximum is going to be the length minus 1, because the length, so in this case we have 4 array elements, but if you're going to get the length, it's going to tell you 4. So that means if you get a random integer from 0 to max, and that's 4, there's a chance it will ask for 4, which isn't a valid number, a valid array element, because it starts counting at 0. 0 is 1. So that's a little thing you always have to keep in mind when getting a random from a. Can we even do? No, there's not a way to do random, I think. So if we hook this up here, this and this is exactly the same, but this is easier to use in child blueprints. But for now, I'll stick with the select. So we'll see some issues. So once we start playing, this actually looks fine. This doesn't look fine. Now this is an issue with this skin. So it's not really an animation issue or an engine issue. It's just that this skin, I think they made a mistake in uploading, because if you open the TUF, you can see it only has 2 bones. So it's just an issue with the bones. It doesn't know what animations to play because it doesn't have any bones to play them on. But we also saw another issue, which I glossed over. But here you can see it's a glowing belt. And if we look that up over here, you can see there's no glowing belt. There's a glowing string over here. Something is going wrong with the material slot. So it's good to take an extra step in here. And what do we need to do for the extra step? We're going to actually save the result of the select to a local variable. Selected skin. Alright. And we're going to feed that in to the new mesh. But now we have that variable stored. So one of these gets picked, stored in that variable, and we'll use that variable to set the skeletal mesh. But that's exactly the same as we did before, but now we saved it. But what we have to do now is from that selected skin, we're going to do get materials. So what that does is go into that skeletal mesh. So if it's this skin, it's going to get into this file and it's going to get all these materials on the list, the whole list of these materials. And we're going to use that to apply the original materials from this skeletal mesh to the current skeletal mesh. So we're going to replace all of these to make sure that the proper ones are set for the specific skin. So you'll get mesh from the viewport basically, or you can drag it out from here, and you are going to do set material. There we go. And we'll drag that out over here, maybe a little bit further, and then from this one, so from the original basically, we're going to do a for each loop and break that or split that struct. You can do that like this, or you can do that, drag it out and do break. It's the same thing really. And for the array index, we're going to set the element index, because the array index is basically just this. So array index 0 is this, 1 this, and the element index is the same, but it's just called differently. They correspond. So this 0 is going to be this 0, and that's what we want. This should solve our issue with the materials. As you can see, now the proper materials are applied. All the skins look good. We have a random one, and yeah, that's solved. But what if? And so if this is enough for you, then great. I hope this video was useful. If you have feedback for me, let me know. If you supported the pack already, thank you so much. If you haven't already, please have a look on the marketplace. I'm going to continue a little bit further for those that want to go a little bit further. So say we have this sparrow skin. So we have different skeletal meshes, but we also have different materials for the same skeletal mesh. So say you have 2 different combinations of materials for this one mesh and 2 different sets of materials for this one mesh. What's a good way of doing that? I don't know if this is the best way, but this is one that I thought I could try out. So we'll create a struct, outfit, and we'll have 2 variables. One is the skeletal mesh, and the other is materials. Material. We'll make this an array once again, and we'll make this a skeletal mesh. Yeah. Then we'll make a new variable in here, outfit, and we'll make that variable a outfit. And an array. Yeah, that's good. We want that. So now we can take let's go there. So we have sparrow. We can make both of them the same skeletal mesh. And oh, that's annoying. I don't know why it does that, why it keeps collapsing. That's a bit annoying. But we'll give her 3 of these. So what will that do? Well, it's going to replace element 0 until 2 with this arrow string material. So let's just isolate. So this, and this part will be black in 50% of the cases. But you're like, oh, you didn't set any materials here. I did that on purpose, because then what we can do, so I'm going to delete this, drag this in. We're going to do the same. So get a copy, random in range, length -1. And promote to a local variable, selected outfit. Delete this. So now we're going to get a random outfit with materials from that array. Break. So the skeletal mesh is going to be this. And here we're going to do a little extra step. We're going to add an isValid. What this allows you to do is you don't have to set up materials for all of the skeletal meshes, because now we have 2 times the same skeletal mesh, and one of them is going to use the default setup. And since it's 13 elements, that saves you 26 clicks, or even more, I guess, like 39 maybe. It saves you a whole bunch of clicks to not have to add all of the materials in here, especially if it keeps collapsing, or what do they call it? Yeah, collapsing on itself. So what we'll do here is we'll do a get, and we'll check if the first array element of materials is valid. Because if we assign the material, then it means we'll want to use the materials stored in here. But if 0 is not valid, we can actually do what we did already, which is from the skeletal mesh, get materials. So we'll get the original materials and we'll apply it, just to make sure nothing goes wrong. But if we do want to overwrite, we have to do a for each loop. In that case, you have to make sure that you assign proper ones to all of the required elements. You need to make sure that 0 here lines up with 0 in the skeletal mesh. But I hope that makes sense to you. Set material. Yes, 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 there we go. Alrighty, so now we should have 50% of them walking around with a strange blackish upper body, and the other half is just normal. And as you can see, strange black upper body, materials have been replaced, rest is still the same, and these ones are normal. So that's great. That's another way of doing it, and this allows you as well to go into different child blueprints and change the outfits here. Let me see if what happens. Okay, so here it works normally, but if we do it in here, it also works normally now. Okay, that's great. It doesn't collapse on itself anymore. So I hope this tutorial was useful to you. I hope you learned something here. I hope you're now able to set up randomization for your skeletal meshes when you spawn them in. Now, it also means that if you drag one in and you drag it around, it will change around between the different. I'll turn off. It will. You see it? It will change because the construction scripts always run even if you move it as well. So on end. All right. Good luck with your projects. Thanks for supporting me. Leave a 5-star rating if you haven't already, because I really appreciate it. It motivates a lot. And yeah. All right. See you next time.